Is that okay?
Yes.
Great. Now, are you aware that the...
If he'd said no, what would you have done?
Well, I mean, I always try and be courteous.
You
and
are always courteous.
If I was going to deny that, I would have been, I guess, mildly disappointed. But I understand. Now, you would be aware, I imagine, that the government have, since the election, said that they are very supportive of deregulation. The Treasurer said he read an American book and therefore he now thinks it's very important. The Finance Minister, of course, has also given extensive public commentary about deregulation, including in relation to the Economic Roundtable. So I guess my opening question is, what exactly is happening to deregulate this very heavily regulated economy?
Senator, I can see some officers have joined the table.
Reinforcements.
And I am day 7, but I note that the government introduced an omnibus bill today into the House of Representatives to deal with regulatory reform. It proposes to amend 28 acts, repealing 2 and affects 13 agencies. And I'd like my colleagues to just take you through some of that. Because certainly in my in-briefing, regulatory reform and lifting the productivity of our economy through that deregulation and reform agenda is clearly one of our priorities.
Fair enough.
See, I was very pleased when I realised the timetable for the bill being introduced. I thought it'd give us something to talk to Senator Bragg about.
Always keen to help.
Thank you, Senator. My name's Kelly Wood, Assistant Secretary, Commercial Group, and thank you for your question. Yes, this morning the Treasurer introduced the Regulatory Reform Omnibus Bill, and as the Secretary said, it amends 28 acts, appeals to and affects 13 agencies. So the aim of the bill is really to recognise that modernising regulation and reducing duplicative processes are really essential steps to boosting Australia's economy and driving long-term productivity. So the reforms will enable the use of data and digital technologies and improve access to government services.
Okay, so we had I know you weren't privy to yesterday's session, but we had the Prime Minister's Department here. They have the Office of Impact Analysis, and effectively, I think the general consensus was that they deal with flows in the sense that they give departments advice on whether or not their particular proposal is going to be efficient, let's say, and you at Finance look at the stocks. Is that a fair characterisation?
Senator, almost but not quite would be my response. Right. It's certainly the case that they look at the flow. They look at, in a sense, new stuff coming into the system. The reason I say not quite in terms of our role is in a sense, the responsibility for deregulation or improving regulation or reforming regulation is kind of a dispersed responsibility across the owners of all the various regulatory landscapes. What Finance has does have.
So what do you do then? What do you do in DREG?
We've got a couple of roles. One is we do have a coordinating role which has led to things like the Omnibus Bill. So actually dealing with small regulatory changes that will make a difference that would otherwise be very hard to get through as to find the legislative time to be able to deal with. So that's one piece we do.
Yep.
The second piece we do, which goes a little bit to the point about the stock, is we're responsible for, I guess, what you'd call regulatory policy, and in a sense the policy governing the way our cohort of regulators in Australia operates. And that means we do work not dissimilar to other things Finance does in terms of setting frameworks and sort of policy guidance for how agencies should then go about operating. In that context, with the deregulation sort of point in mind, we are looking at what we can do consistently across the regulators in this country to require them or encourage them to get the balance right between growth, productivity and and risk.
Okay.
The sorts of things we would do in that context are advice around the way regulators are given instructions or directions or guidance through statements of expectations, for example.
Okay.
But to come back to the broad point, if it comes to, for example, reform in the world of communications regulation or transport regulation or environmental regulation, those are going to necessarily need to be led not by a central agency like finance, but by the relevant part of government that owns those pieces of
Okay.
legislation.
So it sounds like you have more of a streamlining role.
Our role, yes, but I think it's also the case that we're not figuring deregulation is necessarily an end in itself.
Okay.
In some instances, it's about improving and modernising
Okay.
rather than just deregulating,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
So let me just ask you a couple of dumb questions. So do you look at the overall regulatory burden in Australia? Is that something that you look at overall?
Not in a quantitative sense, but that is a question that we are thinking about at the moment.
So as I said, these are dumb questions. But like, if I said to you, do you know how many laws are on the books in Australia? Would you know the answer?
I suppose the answer is no. Well, I mean, you could count what's on the statute book in terms of the laws, but I don't think that would give you a particularly helpful answer.
You could compare that to similar jurisdictions, perhaps, or you could look at some of the OECD research. You could try and get a sense of where we sit.
Yeah. You'd probably need, I mean, just on that, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but just to observe that one of the challenges here is the burden that comes from both state and Commonwealth regulation.
Well, that's not unusual. I mean, Canada's a federation,
Yeah.
India's a federation. That's not unusual. So, okay, so it sounds like you don't necessarily have that number, but you do look at the general burden and then you give advice on that burden.
And yes,
On the stocks.
yes, on the performance of the sort of regulatory cohort. Yeah.
Okay, so there was an economic summit in Canberra some time ago. I think it was in July or August. Is that right? August?
July, August,
July, okay.
early August.
So memorable.
It was a great time. We'll never forget it. And there were, I think, outcomes from that meeting, including the Finance Minister advising that she, in accordance with the Treasurer, would write to 30 regulators. Mm-hmm. You've now received those letters. Mm-hmm. How many laws and regulations have you identified to repeal on the back of those letters you've received?
So those letters, I'll hand to my colleagues in a minute who may be able to add to this, but the sort of opening point there, those letters were to regulators, seeking regulators to indicate
their ideas, right?
Things they could, yes, and including things that they could do themselves. So that is might be a combination of subordinate regulation that they themselves are responsible for, or also processes, procedures, approaches to the way they carry out administering the laws, which they can't, the regulators can't repeal the laws, but the regulators do have choices. So those letters didn't, therefore, weren't seeking their views on laws to appeal, but they did offer a range of views on things they thought could be done to improve the regulatory landscape.
But those ideas are not contained in the bill introduced today, are they?
Things coming through from those letters.
Yeah.
I don't think, I'll just check.
So the measures that were in the regulatory reform omnibus bill, we've been collecting over a period of time, and then the economic roundtable certainly gave prominence to that bill, and we ended up through that process increasing the number of measures that came forward in that bill.
Okay, so look, I mean, I think a reasonable person would look at deregulation and say, well, what are the things that you can get rid of that you don't need anymore, that are not helping anyone, that are going to reduce the cost of doing business here? So what are the things that you're going to do to make it easier to do business in Australia? What are the rules and laws you're going to repeal?
Senator, I think that's right, and that's where the role that we will have in finance is continuing to push across the system to continue to use by building on the outcomes of the economic round table, the Minister for Finance and the Treasurer working with other ministers and other portfolios on exactly those questions.
Sure,
Opportunities for
So you don't
repeal,
have anything
opportunities
today
for
you can
reform.
identify that we can get rid of as a country?
We don't own most of the regulations, so I can't give you a...
Okay. Well, can I just ask the
view.
thanks, Mr. Windy. Can I just ask the minister then? So, can I just ask you? So, in your mind, then, what does deregulation mean for this government? Because it's not clear to me exactly what you are going to repeal or what exactly you're going to do to make it easier to do business here.
So, Senator, I had some interesting stats just sent to me by the very efficient Minister for Finance's advisors.
Good.
Yes, which pointed out, I think you used a figure of 5,034 regulations in the last term, that the equivalent figure for Mr Morrison was 5,481. From 2016 to 2019, under both Mr Turnbull and Mr Morrison, it was 5,173. And from 2013 to 2016, under Mr Abbott and Mr Turnbull, it was 17,495. So I put that on the record just to maybe put in context the fact that actually we're doing better. But I think the Finance Minister and the Treasurer have made clear we do want to make sure that we do what we are able to increase productivity in this country. This regulatory agenda, including what has been introduced today and more to come, is an important part of that. Out of the round table, a set of better regulation priorities were articulated. The updating SOE, Statements of Expectations for Regulators, to emphasise productivity and a better balance between outcomes and risk. The Tell It Once principle, which I think has already been referenced. Treasurer asking the CFR, the Council of Financial Regulators, to consider reform that prioritises the streamlining and harmonising of data collection, national regulatory consistency through the NCP, the National Competition Policy, and there are a range of other matters. So this is difficult work. I do recall when I was a very long time ago in this portfolio, how hard it was to try and get National Occupational Licensing Scheme agreed with states and territories, and that was one of the areas from recollection that had very substantial productivity benefits if that could be landed. So I don't think anyone's pretending that there is an easy path. It requires a disciplined, detailed, determined work across portfolios. Today's legislation is an important step. There is a lot more to do.
So I guess the question is, what are the laws that are on the books today in Australia? We have a lot of laws. We have over 1,000 laws on the books. It's a very hard country to do business in. What are the laws that you're going to get rid of that's going to make it easier for people to do business?
Well, Senator, Mr Windair can outline what this portfolio's contribution...
But you've had 4 years almost.
Well, just hang on. Can outline what this contribution can be. But, Senator, I know you don't agree with the industrial relations changes, same job, same pay, and a range of other reforms, but that is the position of the government, and there are benefits that flow to working people as a consequence. So I think we don't have an ideological view, which I know you do, around industrial relations, for example.
This is not my question.
Well, but it is actually.
Well, it's not.
Because you're saying, what are you going to strip back? What are you going to strip back?
What are you going to get rid of? You said you're going to do it. What are you going to get rid of?
Senator Bragg, let
This
the
is not a
Minister answer.
cross-examination of me. You asked me a question. Do you want me to respond or not?
Well, I'm very happy to hear the answer.
All right, that's fine. If you don't want to hear the answer, that's fine, Senator McKenzie.
No, I'd like to know what you're going to repeal.
Well,
Treasurer said you're going to do this. I'm just asking the question. What is it
and
you're going to repeal?
unlike you, we don't have an ideological agenda around industrial relations.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't. And we actually think improving outcomes for working people is a good thing. So if that's your agenda, no, we are not joining that. But what we will do is the detailed, disciplined policy work methodically working through how it is that we can improve the productivity of our economy and how regulatory reform can contribute to that. That's what we'll do.
So are there any, my last question is, are there any laws on the books so far, we've got over 1,000 in this country, that you've identified that we can get rid of?
Senator Rachel Antone, First Assistant Secretary Commercial Group. I might just point out a few points of relevance to your question at this stage. Before I do though, I will note that the focus over the last little while has been about better regulation, which acknowledges that there, as the Treasurer said in the second reading speech for our bill today, that regulation is there to protect or empower Australians, and so the focus for us is to ensure that regulation is indeed fit for purpose, and that may mean repealing, or it may mean modernising, or
Which
it
ones?
may mean consolidating. So there are a range of kind of tools in our toolkits, and to that end, the bill that was introduced today has a number of measures, in fact 60, of which a few do repeal certain bodies of law, while others consolidate or clarify or refine in a way to ensure that the burden is reduced on Australians in a variety of aspects of life. In addition to that, this, as the Treasurer pointed out, is the first step, and we continue to collect the bugbears of business as well as individuals to ensure that where there is somewhere on the legislation, on the statute books, that we can further refine or indeed repeal, that we are picking that up in a meaningful way, rather than simply looking at the size of the statute book, which sometimes can be a measure that doesn't really give you a sense of either the level of burden itself or what it is that you would compromise on in terms of protections if you remove them. I might just ask my colleague, Ms Wood, to note the items that were being repealed in today's bill.
Yeah, thank you, Ms Antone. So the bills, the legislation that is being repealed through the omnibus that was introduced today are in Schedule 4 of that bill, which are captured together as amendments that will increase government efficiency and improve productivity. And two that will be repealed is the Cockatoo and Schnapper Islands Act of 1949,
Right.
and that's about removing redundant
Sorry,
legislation.
what is it? The which?
Pardon?
Did you say cockatoo and snapper?
Yes.
Okay.
The second is repealing the Early Years Quality Fund Special Account Act,
Right.
2013.
To two.
So that is two of the 60 measures that are coming forward in this
Just
bill.
For clarity, so how many laws are being repealed?
And Senator, in addition to the laws that are being repealed, there are 58 other measures that will reduce burden for individuals across our economy.
Thank you, but the question was how many are being repealed? I think the answer is two. Is that right?
In this omnibus bill, Senator.
Two. Okay.
It's not. We can't speak for, and we're not speaking for the efforts across government to
Two
look
out
at
of
their
over
statutory
1,000.
responsibilities.
Chair, he
stop
can't keep
badgering
doing
and-
this. He can't badger the witnesses through their answer. If he wants to ask a follow-up
finished.
question, he's entitled to.
I'm finished.
All right? Can
I'm
you
done.
let them finish and then follow up?
We've got the information. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent.